Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. We are in the house, and more excitedly, we're in the house with Crappie Cowboy.
Yep.
Look at that. Those two words have never met.
Not until I came into the fishing world.
In this household, anyway. Just jump right in it. Tell us about that.
Kind of a unique story. I rode bulls for 32 years. I started when I was 18, got on my last bull when I was 50 years old.
Wow.
Finished 11th in the world in the senior professional bull riding tour that year, and that's the year that I won the Crappie Masters National Championship on Grenada. Wow. And that opened some doors for me, so I decided it was time to hang up the boots and spurs and just focus on fishing.
You know, I always say that the best fishermen, they always look like they ride bulls. I tell people that, like, if you watch, they're up on Erie or they're Grenada where the waves are going like that. I go,
timing
right there,
and balance.
That's Cowboy, and I said, Cowboy could do this. You're living proof.
Timing and balance, absolutely.
Well, in the rodeo world, there's a level that you have to achieve to be good. Mm-hmm. And then better, and then great. And so it's kind of that way in fishing, isn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, Brian Sowers asked me one time how I would compare riding bulls to tournament fishing. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences too. I mean, anything you do competitively and you do it well, it's 90% mental. Because once we get to a certain level, I don't really know the right words for it, but once your abilities reach a certain level, then it's mind games. It's making the right decisions at the right times with the conditions that are handed to you to come out successful.
Yep. So from being a cowboy to being an angler, professional angler, mm-hmm. and a fishing guide, when did you start guiding?
I started guiding probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Just kind of did it part-time. 2 years ago, I walked away from my job and jumped in, you know, both feet in the water all at one time, and here we go. And I had some very good mentors, some really, really good guides from Mississippi and Alabama and different places, and they were right. They told me, you know, you're not going to make a living guiding for at least 5 years. You've got to build your clientele. So I've got some little side hustles that I do right now as I'm building my guide service, but it's growing faster and faster every year.
Yes. So tell us the reservoirs that you're guiding on.
My main reservoir I guide on is Eufaula Lake in Oklahoma. It's ranked top 10 in the nation right now. It is an unbelievable fishery for numbers. It's producing a lot of 3-pound fish in the spring now. My backup lakes that I guide on are Fort Gibson and Hudson. Fort Gibson is my favorite wintertime lake because we can go up in the river and catch the big giant black crappie.
Oh, wow. Are you catching them around docks? Or are you catching
No,
them
we're
wood?
catching them on laydowns.
Oh, on laydowns.
Yeah, and shallow laydowns. You know,
Wow.
It'll be 32 degrees outside, and we're catching these fish in 5-6 foot of water.
That's the beauty of crappie fishing.
Love it.
Those things, they get crazy in the wintertime. It's actually, and that's probably the cool thing is when other things seem to start dying down a little bit, then crappie fishing seems to pick up. Mm-hmm. Bigger crappie, and you can do a lot of things. So when you're guiding, are you spider rigging, or what kind of techniques are people looking at?
I've got two main techniques that I use right now. One is casting. You know, we'll live scope these fish, find them where they're positioned on these laydowns, and we'll cast small jigs to them. When they don't want to chase, then we get the long rods out and we go to a vertical presentation.
All right. And so of the lakes that you talked about, which one do you do like guide the most on?
I would say.
And is there a period of time when one's different than the other?
Absolutely. Eufaula seems to be good year round. Okay, and that's the main lake that I got on because I can always produce numbers on that lake.
Right.
I catch a better quality of fish at certain times of the year out of Fort Gibson and Hudson, but there are times, like right now, those lakes are extremely tough. I went out, took a guy out on a trip the other day. We only caught 12 crappie, but they were big fish. I mean, first one he caught was a 2.5 pound black to start the day.
Black. Gee.
Yep. So Hudson and Gibson, during the really hot part of the summer, they get tough. That's why I like fishing Eufaula more than these other lakes. From spring through early fall, and then from fall through winter, I'll mainly be on Hudson and Fort Gibson.
All right. So someone shows up, you're going to find out what they like to do, or do they ever call up and they want to catch, go to a certain lake, and that's where you decide that you're going?
They do. And I'm open to that. I've had people call me and request lakes, and I'll go do that because I do electronics training. I've had people approach me and they want to know how I go about breaking down new lakes, for tournament fishing or guiding on them. And there's different styles of lakes, but most of them you can break them down the same way.
Yeah. So let's see. Is it hair jigs or rubber?
Both.
Which one?
Both. It depends on the bite.
All right. So how do you know which one you're going to use that day? Or is it whatever's laying on the floor? Hey, Greg, he probably doesn't have your system where whatever's laying on the floor, you just pick it up because it worked the day before, and then it still works. But
well, so this is kind of how I break things down.
Right.
A lot of it depends on what stage our shad are in.
Okay.
Because all your fly fishermen, a lot of your great anglers, they match the hatch.
Right.
So when we've got mainly big shad in the lake, I'm throwing a big plastic bait, sometimes a 3.5 to 4 inch bait, because that's what these fish are eating. Now, once the shad spawns start happening and we've got small fry in the lake, then that's when I start downsizing my baits.
Okay.
And mayfly hatch, you're going to use a small bait, So I'm watching what's going on the lake. What are these fish feeding on? And that's what I'm trying to emulate as I'm guiding or tournament fishing.
So, are you making your own hair jigs then?
No, I've got a young man. I'm all about the youth. I mean, there's some great hair jig tires all over the country.
Right.
I've got 2 young men that are 13 years old. One lives in Eufaula. His name is Weston Ford. And then I've got a young man that's 13 years old from Inola. His name is Easton Chastain. And both of those boys are tying my hand ties for me, and they do an outstanding job. And I've actually got Easton coming to the riders camp, and he's going to enter the jig tying competition.
Well, you plugged it. The Writers Conference, that's going to happen very shortly in September. It's hashtag 2024.
Absolutely.
LOZ, like Lake of the Ozarks, LOZ Fish Camp. And so that fish camp's is a catch, clean, and cook. Now, I have accidentally said fish, clean, and eat because I don't cook. And so anyone who knows me knows that I don't cook. I don't cook on the grill. I think that was a plot by a cave woman that said, I'm going to have to cook. I bet I can trick my husband into cooking, and we'll just call this thing a grill. And boom, there it is.
I'm looking forward to it because I do most of the cooking at our house. And we were actually talking about the cooking competition up there. And I've got a trick up my sleeve. We'll see if I can win it or not.
We're going to see what happens. So I always try and call it eating contest. So I skip the one part and go to the thing. But
the best part about it's eating. So
That's right. So what are you guiding out of? What kind of boat are you driving? And
right
what are you
now,
using for rods and reels?
ACC Crappie Sticks they've sponsored me from the word go.
Andy,
he's been really good to me. Love his product. Right now, I am fishing out of an 18.5-foot Express aluminum boat.
Is it a bay boat?
It's by circumstance.
Uh-huh.
I had a I had a big Ranger, and it got totaled on Truman Lake last summer in June.
Right.
And we still haven't come to terms with that yet. So as soon as we get settled with the insurance company, I'll be back into a 2021 foot big boat.
Okay. And crappie brakes and all that?
Absolutely. I think I was one of the first guys to put crappie brakes on my boat. The very first person I know that did it was Terry Stewart out of Mississippi. He was doing it back in the day trolling. When they were spider rigging and side pulling, he put them on his boat to do that.
Right.
Then you had Jared Fyock and his partner.
Jared, yeah.
They showed up at the Wally Marshall on the Red River, and they schooled everybody with those brakes. So as soon as we got home from that, I immediately put brakes on my boat.
Yeah. So that's the deal. So explain to people if they don't know what crappie brakes are.
Okay, crappie brakes are two trolling motors on the back of your boat. They're turned around where the blades face the boat. And the hardest thing in live scoping crappie is stopping your boat because you're in a forward motion, you're searching for those fish, and then when you see your target, you let off the trolling motor, your boat's still floating. Right. It's still moving forward. So you put a stomp switch in the front of your boat. You're running up to these fish, you let off your trolling motor, you hit the stomp switch, turns the back trolling motors on, and it just shuts the boat down. And you can come to a complete stop. And in the wind, boat control is amazing with those in the wind because you can bump forward and hit your brakes and bump forward. You can just kind of play with those back and forth and hold yourself in one position to get that bait on that fish. I don't know how you would guide without it if you're guiding with live scope.
So when you're out fishing in Oklahoma lakes, they seem to always be affected by the wind. Is that not?
Oh,
is 100%. That true?
100%.
Is that because Texas blows and Oklahoma sucks?
I don't know.
I'm just saying. I've heard that. Now I'm from Arkansas, so I don't know. We may be settling this discussion come after football season. We may know a little bit more after that.
Right.
It may be Arkansas sucks, but we'll see how this year goes. But tell us, like Oklahoma Lake seemed to be like in some of itself. So Beaver Lake is here in the background. That's a Ozark Highland reservoir. So it's a deep, clear water. You got to run up the rivers to get some stain. So black crappie more towards the middle and, the end of the lake that's real clear and they're fishing boat docks. But what characteristics are people finding? What are you finding as you guide on these Oklahoma lakes?
Well, and we have... Oklahoma's got a big diversity. So we have some lakes that are just like this lake, Hudson and Fort Gibson. You've got clear water black crappie. You go up in the rivers, you got stained water white crappie. So, and then you've got river fishing. And as you know as well as I do, river fishing is a whole different monster versus lake fishing because those fish, they move daily depending on what the current's doing, what the shad are doing. So we have that. And then you have the reservoirs like Eufaula, which to me line up more like your lakes in Louisiana and Mississippi. They're flat reservoirs with muddy rivers that come into them, so the lakes stay muddy all the time. So you're looking at shallow water white crappie fishing. And it's just a different monster than trying to fish clear water.
How about white crappie versus black crappie? Which one's better?
I love catching black crappie, but
aren't they ornery?
They are. They fight way better, unless you're in Mississippi.
Right.
Those Mississippi fish are like they're on steroids and they're mad at the world. But I prefer white crappie because they're a little more patternable.
Right.
You can pull up on a lay down with 100 black crappie, and you may sit there for 2 hours and never get one to bite. Whereas you pull up on that same lay down and it's got a school of white crappie on it, you're going to catch some fish.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've learned about the black crappie is you just about have to time the bite with those fish.
Yeah. Lake Eufaula, let's talk in Oklahoma. Let's talk a little bit because I was in the boat with some anglers during the NCL tournament. And one of them was JoJo Baker and Clay Wilson. So we're in the boat and I'm filming the show, and literally this is the promotional video to get them to go fishing with you, because literally they were catching 1.8s and were disappointed on catching 1.8 pound crappie. Like, that's another one. Oh my gosh, another one and another. And we're talking not 1 to 2, we're talking like 50 fish. Like all that size. That's a big crappie. When you start, what's the limit? Oh, is it that crazy limit?
37. Takes 37 crappie to fill a 5-gallon bucket. So it's 37.
That's what I always figured. That ridge that runs across the top of a bucket is like 37. So they don't count them. They just go to where that level just hits it.
No, they'll count them. If they pull you over, they'll count them.
Yeah, the game wardens.
Yeah, but I know exactly where JoJo was fishing. I was actually within a couple 100 yards of JoJo in that tournament. I wasn't going to fish that tournament, and JoJo and I were good friends.
Right.
And we had talked about this, and he found those big fish up on the arm I told him to go look at, and like the day before the tournament, we decided, hey, we're going to fish this. So we show up at the meeting and enter, and JoJo's in the mouth of that cove starting, and we're in the back of it, and we're just swapping places all day. So
yeah, that was a heck of a place. There's a lot of fish there. What's the closest town? How far is it from Tulsa to
Tulsa to Eufaula is probably hour and 15 minutes.
All right. Day drive to go down if you live in Tulsa. Broken Bow, closer yet? So
yeah. Broken Bow's way on further south. And it's a clear water reservoir. It'd be like fishing the reservoirs here in Arkansas.
Yeah, here that's a good lake that's got a bunch of stuff, but it's in the middle of nowhere. And what I saw was it looked like there's going to be a lot of boat traffic in the summer there.
Yeah, you get all the people from Texas. They come up there, and it's kind of Hochtown's kind of a little mini Branson, so it gets a lot of tourist traffic.
That's right. So if they're going to go on a guide trip with you, is there anything they should bring? What's the deal? You clean the fish? Give us some.
I supply all the gear.
Okay.
I clean all the fish. They're responsible for their fishing license.
Okay.
I keep water in the boat, but if they want any other drinks or snacks, bring your drinks and snacks. And I clean the fish at the end of the day, package them, and send you home.
There you go. That takes us up to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits, especially for crappie fishing. They got lots and lots of baits. If you want a hair jig, they have the bunny butts, which is made with real hair. Get it? Hair. So you can get them, and they do have soft plastics too. But check them out at PicoLures.com. They want to go fishing with you. Besides having to wear a cowboy hat. Do you wear a cowboy hat?
Not very often.
Okay. If they want to go fishing with you, how they get in touch with you, how they find out more about you.
Okay. All my social media is the Crappie Cowboy, Craig Nichols, and they can reach me at 918-430-6884.
Okay. There you have it. Like I always like to end the show. Make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.
Absolutely.